Welcome back, everybody. It's Zach here, bringing us another fantasy football video. So we'll be going over 5 players that I'd be looking to sell high on ahead of Week 6. Sell highs are tough because I'm not necessarily saying that you guys just need to specifically make an effort to just give these guys away, but these are guys that I think are overperforming to the point where I'd be looking to at least consider moving off of them. I do expect significant regression to come for these guys in the next few weeks, and I think now is a good time to capitalize and get some value on these guys. So I try to go position by position, give you guys players at each one. Obviously, these aren't the only players you guys need to be looking to trade away or look to trade for. So if you guys have any specific trade questions, just let me know in the comments. I love helping you guys out there. Couldn't come up with a quarterback for you guys this week. Tough to just find sell highs. I mean, Patrick Mahomes is still a sell high for me if you wanted that one, but I don't know who's buying right now. So beyond that, we got, I believe, 2 running backs, 2 receivers, and a tight end here. So hopefully you guys like it. Any questions, comments, or anything, let me know in the comments below. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoy. Let's get into it here. Starting things off with Javonte Williams, I just don't buy it. We saw him actually put up a decent level of production here this last week, and kind of 2 weeks in a row here for the Broncos, but it's just 2 straight weeks with really basically cakewalk matchups for the Broncos. These are games the Broncos should have won regardless. I just don't expect Javonte Williams to really deserve this workload he's been getting so far over the next course of the season here. Audric Estime could return as soon as next week here. That could easily eat into Javonte's workload. He's yet to find the end zone. We're seeing Jaleel McLaughlin get used near the end zone, which obviously sucks. Broncos are putting up a lot more points lately than I think we could expect them to. So I just don't view Javonte Williams as an RB2. I view him as like a really low end, like flex caliber guy, a guy you could play in like a bye week fill in situation, but not a guy that you really want to be actively starting every single week. So if you do have anybody that believes he's an RB2, I just think now's a really good time to take value. I don't think he's ever you're not gonna beat yourself up for trading him away. I don't see a world where he ends up just bursting onto the scene, being a top 15 running back the rest of the season. That seems nearly impossible for me with just how much they're utilizing other running backs and how limited this offense still is, even though they're winning games. So I'm not in on Javonte. I think if you can move off of him now's a good time to at least get some value out of him. Next, we got Michael Pittman Jr. And the issue here is that I honestly just think Josh Downs is a more talented player. He's dominating close to the line of scrimmage. He's the clear slot weapon there. And with A.D. Mitchell and Alec Pierce really getting the majority of the deep shots in this offense, it doesn't leave a lot for Michael Pittman Jr. to really do in this offense. Like, he's going to work in the intermediate area. He's going to get some targets. They'll use him near the red zone. So he's not a completely useless fantasy asset here, but we saw him, put up a decent level of production. Only had 38 receiving yards with Joe Flacco. Scored a touchdown, so at least you got a decent fantasy outing out of him here. But the floor is insanely low for Pittman. We saw that over the first 3 weeks of the season. Finally had a good week in his first week where Joe Flacco came in week 4. Joe Flacco still playing in week 5. You got a decent level of production, but not enough to make you really happy about it. And we probably get Anthony Richardson back in week 6 here. Just not something that I'm really excited about. Like, anytime you're playing Michael Pittman, it feels like a touchdown or bust kind of play because the volume and quality and the volume of targets going his way just aren't very good. He's not a guy that's historically put up double-digit touchdowns in his career either, so you don't want to be betting on a touchdown every single week out of him. I think he's much more of like a low-end wide receiver 3, high-end wide receiver 4 the rest of the season. So if you can get wide receiver 3 value for him, which I think you still maybe can, I think now's a good time to move off him because I just don't expect a lot of production the rest of the way. Next, we got Garrett Wilson here. He's been on this list several times for me over the last couple years, but it took 22 targets for this guy to break 100 yards. This offense is just not working right now. They're not going to see this team down 17-0 very often because their defense is really good still. I know the Vikings offense put it on them pretty early, so you had to see the Jets throw the ball 50-ish times. That led to a really dramatic target share for Garrett Wilson, and obviously it was great to see him do that. Anybody that can earn 22 targets is clearly a talented player, but getting 22 targets and turning that into 13 catches for 102 receiving yards, not really all that great. Like, sure, it was a good fantasy day, but let's scale that down to how many targets he's actually going to get on a weekly basis. You're probably looking at something closer to 9 targets on a weekly basis. Now you're looking at 5 for 45 and a half a touchdown, which is just not what you're looking for out of a guy that I think people do sort of view as a wide receiver 1, and especially if you could see someone who's like, hey, they just fired their head coach. They might think things are turning around. They'd obviously had a really great week with Garrett Wilson this week. If anybody thinks this is like the return of a wide receiver 1, a guy who just had a slow start and is starting to ramp things up, I would bail and just move off of him because I don't think that's the case. I think he's more of a low-end wide receiver 2 the rest of the way. You can still get that, people drafted him in the first round. If you can still get that value or anything close out of him, I think now's a good time to sell because I don't think you'll really see a game like this for a while out of Garrett Wilson. One more receiver on this list here. It's going to be Brandon Aiyuk, who he is a great player and obviously just came off of a fantastic game this last week. But it was a smash matchup. He played the Arizona Cardinals. Deebo Samuel's still banged up. There's no Christian McCaffrey. He was much more necessary to the offense. And also beyond that, the Cardinals actually beat the Niners this last week. I don't think the Niners are going to find themselves trailing or in a situation where they have to put up a lot of points very often. Brandon Aiyuk is a great player, like I said. This is a good offense, but I don't think Aiyuk's very necessary to the offense on a weekly basis. You're going to see every single week, at least one of these weapons between Aiyuk, Deebo, and Kittle is going to bust. And like we saw last week, it was Deebo. Easily this week, we could see Brandon Aiyuk not be very good this week. We could see George Kittle get factored out. And that becomes even more likely when Christian McCaffrey does return, which just sounds more and more likely. We don't know exactly when that's going to happen, but it's going to happen at some point. If you can trade him as like a high-end wide receiver too, I think it makes sense to do that just because, you know, he is a guy that people expected a lot of production out of. People will just say, okay, he started slow because obviously he missed training camp. Now he came out, he's dominating. It looks good for Brandon Aiyuk. He's obviously trending up, but I don't view him as like a high-end wide receiver 2. I view him more as like a low-end wide receiver 2 to wide receiver 3 the rest of the season. So I think if you can capitalize on this great game and extract some value there, I think it does make sense. Just a little caveat, though, probably going to have a great game on Thursday against Seattle as well. So if you want to wait one more week to move off of him, you could certainly do that. But I think that Aiyuk is probably, you know, like I said, a low-end wide receiver 2 the rest of the way. If you can get high-end wide receiver 2 value out of him, I think it makes a lot of sense to at least consider moving him. And the last sell high for me here, this one's pretty tough, but I wanted to find a tight end, and for me it's going to be Tucker Kraft. Tough to do that because everyone obviously needs production from a tight end position, and seeing a guy do this 2 weeks in a row at the age he is it's really impressive. He's looked like the best tight end out of the 2023 tight end class so far this season. And he's looked great. There's nothing I can really take away from him except that there's just a lot of weapons in that offense. I don't really view him as a top 5 tight end the rest of the season. Like, I would still take Trey McBride over him. I'd take Brock Bowers. I would take Kelsey over him. Probably Kittle over him, and probably Kincaid. But that's probably about it here. So he's still he's a fringe top 5 tight end. I just don't want to overreact here. Like, he had a really big play on a bit of a broken coverage here that obviously boosted his production here. Had like a manufactured touchdown later on in the game as well. It's great to see that they're getting him that, but you also might just have another option as well. I personally picked Tucker Kraft up in 2 leagues where I already have Trey McBride. Just added him because I do believe in the talent and wanted to have extra flexibility there. I thought he'd be a nice trade chip, and that's sort of looking good right now. So I think if anybody did that, I think it makes sense to at least consider moving off of him. People are really desperate for tight end production, so I think you could maybe package him with an RB2 or a wide receiver 2 to get like a high-end producer. Trade him straight up for an RB2 or a wide receiver 2 if you need depth there. I just don't think he's a guy that's going to be like a locked-in, must-start, top 5 caliber kind of tight end for us the rest of the way. I view him as a really good starting option, a guy that we can use every single week if we need to, but not a guy that's going to be like a huge difference maker. So I'm willing to move off of Tucker Kraft. You don't have to, but I just think that now his value might be at a bit of a peak, even though this Packers schedule going forward is really great. You're going to get Wicks back, or Wicks performing better. You'll get Dobbs and Christian Watson back at some point. He'll be less necessary to the offense. On top of that, Luke Musgrave, he's been banged up. He's going to come back at some point. Just the necessity of Tucker Kraft in the offense is going to be reduced a little bit going forward. So I think you probably maybe saw the best 2-week stretch he's going to have at any point this season already. So that'll do it for the sell highs for week 6. Up next, I'll be going over starts and sits. So I'll go over every single game in week 6, go over each fantasy relevant player, and do what I can to tell you what I think is going to happen for that player this week, and hopefully help you decide whether or not you should be playing them this week in fantasy. So stay tuned for those videos. I'll split that into 2 videos just because otherwise it ends up being like an hour-long video. You guys don't want to sit through that. I don't want to record that all at once either, so it's just easier if we split that up. Beyond that, there's also going to be the live stream Sunday morning, 1 hour before the games kick off. I will go over last-minute injury updates, answer your start-sit questions right there, so hopefully we can see you there. Highly recommend you join it. That's at 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 p.m. Eastern time, so hop in for that, say hi. It'd be great to interact with you guys, get you guys all set to win this week, and then yeah, beyond that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, make sure you please do that. There's going to be more videos every single week. I'll be here all year long to help you guys win your league, so make sure you don't miss any of that just by making sure you're subscribed and that you click the bells to get notifications. And then if you did make it this far in the video and you're already subscribed, or even if you're not subscribed, please do give the video a thumbs up. It just helps with the algorithm and just helps you know that I'm doing a good job and all that. So yeah, appreciate you guys. It's been great, and let's get into a good week 6 here. Hopefully you guys enjoy the Thursday night game. Starts and sits will come out tomorrow. Peace, guys. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.